Amina and Amusok stood outside the beautiful birthday venue in Kampala, Uganda, holding a carefully wrapped gift in both hands. It was her mother Sarah Nankunda's 60th birthday, and she had spent days thinking about whether she should even come. The past few months had been painful, but she didn't want more family drama. She told herself to stay calm, smile, celebrate her mother's special day, and go home quietly. Maybe this time things will be different. The moment she walked inside, something felt wrong. The happy conversations suddenly became quieter. A few relatives looked at her, then quickly looked away. Others whispered to each other. One aunt walked over, hugged her tightly, and said in a soft voice, "I hope one day you can let go of all that anger." Amina froze. What anger? She had no idea what her aunt was talking about. Then a cousin shook his head and quietly said, "Family is more important than money. You should forgive your sister." Amina forced a small smile, but inside she felt completely confused. She hadn't argued with anyone. She hadn't spoken badly about her family. So why was everyone treating her like she had done something terrible? As she made her way through the room, she suddenly heard her mother's voice. Sarah was laughing with a group of guests. "Poor Amina," she said with a smile. "She's always been jealous of her younger sister. She just can't accept seeing someone else succeed." Money changed her. The words hit Amina like a punch to the heart. She stood there without moving. In that moment, everything finally made sense. The strange looks, the whispers, the cold smiles. For months, her own mother had been quietly telling relatives that Amina was selfish, bitter, jealous. Everyone had believed the story without ever asking for her side. No one knew what had really happened. No one knew how much Amina had sacrificed for this family. No one knew the secret she had been carrying. And no one knew that the woman telling those lies was hiding something much bigger herself. Amina took a slow breath, smiled politely, and walked to her seat as if nothing had happened. She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She didn't make a scene. Because before this birthday party was over, everyone in that room was going to hear the truth. And this time, the truth would speak louder than any lie ever could. Amina had been carrying her family on her shoulders for as long as she could remember. Growing up in Jinja, everyone knew she was the responsible daughter. She studied hard, stayed out of trouble, and always did what was expected of her. If something needed to be done, people looked at Amina because they knew she would never say no. Her younger sister, Keisha Nankunda, was completely different. She was friendly, charming, and full of big dreams. She loved expensive clothes, exciting business ideas, and living life without worrying too much about tomorrow. Whenever Keisha made a mistake, their mother, Sarah Nankunda, was always there to defend her. "If she's happy, everything will work out," Sarah would often say. But when Amina made sacrifices, no one celebrated her. When Keisha couldn't pay her school fees, Amina quietly sent the money. When Keisha fell behind on rent after spending too much, Amina stepped in again. If there was a family emergency, everyone called Amina first because they knew she would find a way to help. The strange part was that no one ever asked if she was tired. No one asked if she had her own bills to pay or her own dreams to chase. Instead of thanking her, her family acted as if helping them was simply her duty. If Amina sent money, it was expected. If she couldn't help immediately, people became disappointed. Slowly, her kindness stopped being seen as love. It became an obligation. Years later, Amina worked harder than ever and built a successful logistics company in Kampala. She was proud of what she had achieved because she had earned every step through long days, sleepless nights, and countless sacrifices. As her business grew, so did the family's requests for money. Her mother would call with another emergency. A cousin needed help. Keisha wanted to start another business. Someone always needed something, and Amina almost never refused. She truly believed that one day her family would look at her and say, "Thank you. We couldn't have done this without you." But that day never came. Instead, every act of kindness only made people expect more. The more she gave, the less they appreciated it. Without realizing it, Amina had become the family's solution to every problem, while her own feelings were quietly ignored. She thought she was building stronger family bonds. She had no idea she was actually building a habit that would one day break her heart. A few months before her mother's birthday, something happened that changed everything. It started with a simple phone call. Sarah called Amina late one evening, her voice shaking with emotion. She said she wasn't feeling well and needed money for medical treatment. She told Amina the doctors had found a serious health problem and that she needed help right away. Without asking many questions, Amina sent the money the very next morning. She didn't hesitate because this was her mother. She believed family should help each other, especially during difficult times. The amount was large, but Amina didn't care. She was only relieved that she could help. A few weeks later, Amina was looking through some financial records for an unrelated business matter when she noticed something strange. One document led to another, and soon she found payment records that didn't make sense. The money she had sent for hospital bills had never gone to any hospital. Instead, most of it had been used to pay for expensive shop renovations, designer furniture, luxury clothing, and new stock for Keisha's boutique. There were also payments for beauty treatments, weekend trips, and other things that had nothing to do with medicine. Amina stared at the papers in disbelief. She checked the dates again and again, hoping she had misunderstood. But the numbers didn't lie. Her heart sank. It wasn't just about the money. It was the fact that someone she trusted more than anyone had looked her in the eyes and lied to her. A few days later, Amina visited her mother alone. She didn't shout or accuse her. She simply placed copies of the documents on the table and quietly asked, "Mom, can you explain these?" For a moment, Sarah looked nervous. Then she pushed the papers aside and forced a smile. "Those documents are wrong," she said. "You're confused. Someone is trying to create problems between us." Amina wanted to believe her, but deep inside she knew the truth. Just a few days after that conversation, something strange started happening. Relatives who used to call her every week suddenly became cold. Some stopped answering her messages. Others spoke to her with disappointment, as if she had done something terrible. One had told her, "Money has really changed you." A cousin said, "Your mother is heartbroken because of the way you've been treating her." Amina quickly realized what had happened. Before she could tell anyone the truth, Sarah had already shared her own version of the story. She told the family that Amina had become proud after becoming successful. She claimed Amina refused to help anymore and had become jealous of Keisha's success. The rumors spread fast. Almost no one asked Amina if the story was true. For a moment, she thought about defending herself. She wanted to call every relative and explain everything. But then she stopped. She knew arguments would only create more drama. People could ignore words, but they couldn't ignore proof. So instead of fighting back, Amina stayed silent. She made one quiet decision. She wouldn't win with anger. She would win with the truth. After that day, Amina stopped arguing with anyone. She didn't call her relatives to defend herself. She didn't post anything on social media. She didn't even try to convince people that her mother was lying. Instead, she decided to do something much smarter. She started looking through every financial record she had saved over the years. One evening after work, she opened her laptop and logged into her bank account. She downloaded years of bank transfers and payment records. Then she searched through old emails, text messages, receipts, and even photos she had taken of important documents. What started as a simple check slowly turned into a shocking investigation. The more she looked, the more the same pattern appeared. Every time her mother had called with a family emergency, Amina had sent money without asking questions. Sometimes Sarah said she needed hospital treatment. Other times she claimed the roof needed repairs or that she couldn't pay bills. There was always an urgent reason. But when Amina matched the dates with receipts and payment records, the truth became impossible to ignore. Again and again, the money ended up helping Keisha. One payment helped open Keisha's luxury boutique. Another paid for expensive furniture. One transfer covered designer clothes. Another helped pay for a new car deposit. Even expensive holidays and beauty treatments had been paid for around the same time Sarah claimed she was struggling. It wasn't one mistake. It had been happening for years. Amina sat quietly, staring at the growing pile of evidence. Every document answered one question, but created another. How long had this been going on? And how many times had she been lied to? Then she found something that hurt even more. While searching through old family messages, she came across conversations that had been forwarded to her by accident. In those messages, Sarah was telling relatives not to discuss money with them. "Don't tell her Keisha has already paid for that," one message said. Another read, "If Amina asks questions, just tell her everything is under control." There were even messages asking family members to keep certain purchases secret until the right time. Amina couldn't believe what she was reading. This wasn't just a few lies told in panic. It wasn't just about protecting Keisha. It was planned. People have been asked to stay quiet. Stories have been carefully created. Relatives have been given different versions of the truth, all to make sure Amina never discovered where her money was really going. For the first time, Amina stopped feeling confused. Everything finally made sense. The rumors about her, the cold treatment from relatives, the fake emergencies, the missing money. It was all connected. She closed her laptop, took a deep breath, and made one final decision. She wasn't going to expose her mother in the middle of an argument. She wasn't going to shout or beg people to believe her. She would stay patient. She would collect every receipt, every bank transfer, every message, and every piece of proof. Then, when the time was right, she would place the evidence in front of everyone. She knew one simple truth. People can argue with opinions, but it's much harder to argue with facts. As Sarah's 60th birthday got closer, the whole family became excited. Relatives talked about the party every day in the family group chat. People were choosing outfits, planning speeches, and buying gifts. Everyone wanted the celebration to be perfect. Then Amina surprised everyone. She called her mother and offered to help organize the entire birthday party. "I'll take care of whatever you need," she said with a calm voice. Sarah was delighted. She smiled proudly, believing she had won. In her mind, Amina had finally accepted everything. She thought her daughter had stopped asking questions and decided to move on. "I knew she would come around," Sarah told a few relatives. Deep down, she knows family always comes first. The rest of the family believed the same thing. They saw Amina helping choose the venue, speaking with the decorators, confirming the food menu, and making sure every guest received an invitation. She worked hard to make the celebration beautiful, and everyone thought it was her way of apologizing. No one realized Amina had a different reason for being involved. The closer she stayed to the planning, the more prepared she could be for what was coming. She quietly spoke with the event organizer and asked if there would be a projector and microphone available during the evening. The organizer happily agreed, thinking she wanted to prepare a special birthday surprise. She also spoke with the photographer and asked him to capture every important moment of the celebration. "I don't want anyone to miss the memories," she said with a smile. But there was another reason. Amina wanted everything that happened that night to be witnessed. Over the next few days, she contacted several relatives one by one. She didn't accuse anyone. She didn't tell them about the evidence she had collected. Instead, she asked simple questions about things they had seen over the years. An uncle remembered collecting money for Sarah during a family emergency. A cousin remembered helping Keisha move expensive furniture into her new boutique. An aunt remembered Sarah asking everyone not to mention certain financial matters in front of Amina. Each person knew only a small part of the story. None of them realized those small pieces fit together like a puzzle. Before ending each conversation, Amina made the same quiet request. "When a moment comes, I only want you to say exactly what you remember. Don't add anything. Don't change anything. Just tell the truth." Every one of them agreed. As the birthday drew closer, Sarah felt happier than ever. She looked around at the beautiful decorations, the growing guest list, and her oldest daughter working so hard for the celebration. She believed she had complete control. She had no idea that the biggest surprise of the evening wasn't the birthday cake, the music, or the gifts. It was the truth. And for the first time in years, that truth was only a few days away from being heard by everyone. The evening of Sarah's 60th birthday finally arrived. The hall looked beautiful. Colorful flowers decorated every table. Soft music played in the background, and family members who hadn't seen each other in years were laughing, taking photos, and sharing old memories. Waiters walked around serving food, while children ran happily across the room. From the outside, everything looked perfect. Sarah sat at the center table, smiling proudly as guests lined up to wish her a happy birthday. She looked relaxed and confident. She believed this would be a night everyone would remember for all the right reasons. Amina sat quietly a few seats away. She smiled when people greeted her. She helped serve cake, checked that guests were comfortable, and acted as though nothing was wrong. No one could tell that she had spent weeks preparing for this moment. As dinner continued, several relatives stood up to give short speeches. One uncle thanked Sarah for always keeping the family together. An aunt smiled and said, "Sarah has always loved both of her daughters equally. She has treated them fairly all their lives." Many guests nodded and clapped. Sarah smiled proudly and accepted the compliments without saying a word. Amina listened carefully. She didn't interrupt anyone. When the applause ended, she slowly stood up with a gentle smile. "I'd like to say a few words too," she said. Everyone turned toward her. Sarah smiled, expecting another kind birthday message. Instead, Amina looked at her mother and asked one simple question. "Mom, do you remember the hospital fundraiser I paid for 3 years ago?" The room became quiet. Sarah didn't seem worried. Of course I remember, she answered confidently. The doctor said I needed treatment, and thanks to your kindness, I was able to get the care I needed. I'll always be grateful. Several relatives nodded. They remembered hearing the same story years before. Amina smiled politely. That's good, she said softly. I just want to make sure we both remembered the same event. She reached in her bag and carefully placed a folder on the table. No one knew what was inside. Sarah's smile became smaller for just a second, but she quickly hid her concern. Amina slowly opened the folder without rushing. Inside were neatly organized papers, bank records, receipts, and printed messages. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't accuse anyone. She simply looked around the room and said, "Before we continue celebrating tonight, I'd like everyone to see something. These are the records from that hospital fundraiser." Guests stopped eating. People quietly put down their forks and turned toward Amina. The music was still playing softly in the background, but no one was paying attention anymore. For the first time that evening, Sarah looked nervous. She glanced at the papers, then back at Amina. The confidence she had carried all night slowly began to disappear. No one spoke. The room wasn't filled with shouting. It was filled with silence. And in that moment, that silence was far more powerful than any argument could ever be. Everyone knew something important was about to be revealed. The room stayed completely silent as Amina walked toward the projector. With calm hands, she connected her laptop and displayed the first document on the large screen. No dramatic music, no shouting, no angry words. She looked at everyone and said, "I'm not here to embarrass anyone. I'm only here to tell the truth. If I'm wrong, you can correct me. But everything I'm about to show you is backed by real documents." Then she showed the first bank transfer. It was the payment she had sent 3 years earlier for Sarah's medical treatment. The date, the amount, and the bank confirmation were all clearly visible. Next came another document. Instead of a hospital payment, there was an invoice for expensive furniture delivered to Keisha's boutique only a few days later. A few people looked at each other. Then Amina calmly showed another transfer. Sarah had said the money was needed to repair the family home after heavy rain. But the next receipt showed a payment for designer shelves, luxury decorations, and shop equipment for Keisha's business. "This isn't one mistake," Amina said quietly. "This happened again and again." She continued showing the timeline, one payment after another. Each transfer matched a different family emergency. Each receipt showed the money ending up somewhere completely different. Nobody interrupted her. The evidence was speaking for itself. Then Amina displayed printed text messages. One message showed Sarah asking a relative not to mention Keisha's new boutique in front of Amina. Another message asked someone to keep quiet about where certain money had gone. The room became even quieter. Suddenly, Amina's uncle slowly raised his hand. "I remember this," he said. Everyone turned toward him. "I collected money from several relatives because Sarah said she needed help with hospital bills. We gave her everything we collected." He looked at Sarah with confusion. "But later you told everyone the money never arrived. I always wondered what happened." Sarah opened her mouth to answer, but no words came out. Then one of Amina's cousins spoke. "I remember something too." She looked nervous before continuing. "Aunt Sarah told me not to tell Amina that Keisha had already opened her boutique. She said it would only create unnecessary problems." Another relative nodded. "I thought that was strange at the time, but I didn't ask questions." One by one, more people began sharing what they remembered. Each story was small on its own, but together they fit perfectly. Like pieces of a puzzle, everything connected. The family slowly realized that what they had believed for years wasn't the whole story. Sarah finally stood up. "None of this proves anything," she said quickly. "She's twisting everything to make me look bad." But before she could continue, Amina quietly opened another folder. Inside were more receipts, more bank records, more messages. Every time Sarah tried to explain one document, another piece of evidence. Every excuse was answered with another fact. The confidence Sarah had shown earlier that evening was completely gone. No one was shouting. No one was arguing. The room was simply watching the truth unfold, one document at a time. And with every new piece of evidence, the story Sarah had spent years building began to fall apart right in front of everyone. For a long moment, no one said a single word. The birthday hall, which had been full of laughter just an hour earlier, was now completely silent. Every guest looked from Amina to Sarah, waiting to hear what would happen next. Sarah slowly stood up from her chair. Tears filled her eyes, and soon she began crying. "I never wanted any of this," she said, wiping her face. "I've been under so much stress. I only wanted to keep this family together. I was trying to protect both of my daughters. Some relatives looked at her with sympathy. She continued speaking through her tears. You don't understand what it's like to be a mother. I was only trying to keep peace between Amina and Keisha. Everything I did was for my family. For a moment, it seemed like she might win people over again. But before anyone could respond, Amina quietly stayed where she was. She didn't interrupt. She didn't argue. She simply waited. Then something happened that no one expected. Keisha slowly stood up from her seat. Her hands were shaking, and she looked close to tears. Everyone turned to look at her. She took a deep breath before speaking. Mom, please stop. The room became even quieter. Keisha looked at Amina, and tears rolled down her face. I'm sorry, she whispered. Then she turned back to the rest of the family. Amina is telling the truth. A loud gasp spread across the room. No one expected those words. Keisha lowered her head. I've known about the money for years, she admitted. I knew where it came from. I knew Mom was telling Amina it was for emergencies, but a lot of it was actually used to help me. Sarah immediately tried to stop her. Keisha, don't say another word, she said quickly. But Keisha gently shook her head. No, Mom, I can't keep lying anymore. She looked around the room, trying to hold back her tears. At first, I believed Mom when she said it was okay. She always told me Amina had plenty of money and wouldn't mind helping. She kept saying, she's family. She'll never question us. She always helps. Keisha paused for a moment before continuing. Every time I felt guilty, Mom would tell me not to worry. She said Amina trusted us too much to ever ask where the money went. Several relatives covered their mouths in shock. Others slowly lowered their heads, realizing they had judged Amina without knowing the truth. Sarah looked around the room, searching for someone to defend her. No one spoke. For years, she had controlled the story. She had blamed Amina. She had convinced relatives that Amina was selfish and jealous. But now, the person she had protected the most was confirming everything. There were no more excuses, no more stories, no more one-sided versions of the truth. For the first time in years, Sarah had nowhere left to hide. The birthday everyone thought would be filled with happy memories had become the night that changed the entire family forever. For several minutes, no one in the hall spoke. The silence felt heavy. Everyone was thinking about what they had just seen, and the lies that had been hidden for years had finally come into the open. One by one, family members slowly walked over to Amina. The first was her uncle. He lowered his head and said quietly, Amina, I'm sorry. I believed the stories about you without ever asking if they were true. I should have listened to you. Amina gave him a small smile and thanked him. Then her aunt stepped forward with tears in her eyes. I judged you, she admitted. I thought you had become proud because you were successful. I never imagined you were the one helping everyone all these years. Please forgive me. Soon, more relatives came to her. A cousin shook her hand and said, we all heard one side of the story, and we accepted it without asking questions. That wasn't fair to you. Another family member quietly added, you deserve better from all of us. Amina listened to every apology without anger. She didn't remind them how badly they had treated her. She didn't try to make anyone feel guilty. She simply accepted their words and thanked them for being honest. Across the room, Sarah sat quietly in her chair. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. Part of her expected Amina to shout at her, embarrass her in front of everyone, or list every painful thing that had happened over years. Instead, Amina calmly walked to the front of the room one last time. She looked around at every face before speaking. I didn't come here tonight to destroy anyone, she said softly. I came because I was tired of living with lies. She paused for a moment. I love my family, and I always will. But from today, things have to change. Everyone listened carefully. I will no longer pay for anyone's lifestyle. If there is a real emergency and I choose to help, it will be my decision, not an expectation. She looked at her relatives with kindness. I've learned that helping someone should come from love, not pressure. And trust should be earned through honesty, not guilt. Then she turned toward her mother. I truly hope one day we can rebuild our relationship. But that can only happen if it's built on truth. Sarah looked down at the floor. She couldn't find the words to answer. Amina picked up the beautifully wrapped birthday gift she had brought earlier and gently placed it on the table in front of her mother. Happy birthday, Mom, she said quietly. Then she picked up her handbag and walked toward the door. No one tried to stop her. The room stayed completely silent as she walked away. That silence wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a sign that nothing else needed to be said. The truth had already spoken. And in that moment, everyone understood that real strength isn't about getting revenge. Sometimes the strongest thing a person can do is walk away with peace leaving the truth behind for everyone else to face. A few months passed, and Amina's life slowly began to change. For the first time in many years, she woke up without worrying about the next phone call asking for. There were no fake emergencies, no emotional pressure, and no guilt forcing her to solve everyone else's problems. Instead, she had time to focus on herself. She poured all of her energy into her logistics company, and the business grew faster than ever. New clients trusted her work, and she expanded her services beyond Kampala into Entebbe and Mbarara. The success she had worked so hard for finally felt peaceful because she was no longer carrying the weight of everyone else's. Her personal life changed too. Some relatives stayed away because they were embarrassed by what had happened. Others reached out with honest apologies and slowly rebuilt their relationship. This time, Amina welcomed only the people who respected her, trusted her, and treated her with honor. She had learned that being family doesn't automatically mean someone deserves unlimited chances. Trust has to be earned. Keisha's life also began to change. Without Amina's money to depend on, she had no choice but to take responsibility for herself. She worked harder, managed her boutique more carefully, and stopped expecting someone else to fix her problems. Several months later, she asked Amina to meet for coffee. With tears in her eyes, she apologized sincerely. "I can't change the past," she said, "but I'm truly sorry for everything." This time, Amina believed she meant it. Their relationship wasn't perfect, but it slowly started to heal. Sarah, however, remained distant. She rarely called, and family gatherings were never quite the same. She had spent years creating a story that made Amina look like the villain, but in the end, she was the one left facing the consequences of her own choices. As time passed, Amina often thought about everything that had happened. She realized the hardest part had never been losing money. It wasn't even losing people's approval. The hardest part was accepting that love without honesty can slowly turn into manipulation. Kindness without healthy boundaries can be taken for granted. She also realized something else. She had never needed revenge. She never needed to shout, argue, or embarrass anyone. She only needed the truth to be seen. Because lies may fool people for a while, but they cannot last forever. And sometimes, the strongest person in the room isn't the one who speaks the loudest. It's the one who stays patient, protects the truth, and waits until the truth can no longer be ignored.